just a little bit about this. This is just some undergrads at U-TTEC Lab who are trying to provide more information about psychology, particularly to people who are looking into potentially going into the field, and also provide more information about mindfulness as well.
Sweet.
Would you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So hi, everybody who's watching. My name is Benjamin Ratcliff. I am a third year in the counseling psych program at the University of Utah.
Awesome. And what led you down a career path of going into counseling psychology?
So my path to counseling psychology started when I was actually pretty young. I have a family friend who's a child psychologist who convinced me and my dad to come volunteer at this grief facilitation camp out in the middle of nowhere, Montana. And it was a truly wonderful experience, being able to sit with the grief that these kiddos were experiencing. For context, the campers were between 6 and 12 years old who had experienced a significant loss in their life. And through that experience, kind of learning lessons about what resiliency looks like, how people can bounce back, how people can find new meaning after a traumatic experience, really pushed me down this road of wanting to help people, wanting to be somewhere in that helping field. Really found great foundational experience. And then through kind of my own professional development, first in my undergrad and then being a teacher afterward, kind of settled on this counseling psychology as a way to really reach people where they're at and explore in this really genuine way that makes me very excited.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, or if you feel like it's too long of an answer, but how does one find meaning after a traumatic event?
Oh, this is a good question. I think the simple answer is that it's different for everybody.
Okay.
I think that there is that grieving process that is very, very culturally based. And for different people, that's going to look extraordinarily different. I've worked with people from a variety of religious backgrounds. Sometimes it's understanding grief from if it's a long, like a long decline, like a illness that slowly takes somebody away, unfortunately. Finding meaning in death as them being in a better place, ending of suffering, and kind of learning lessons about how to accept those kinds of changes. In other cases, if you're looking at somebody who has experienced a more traumatic loss, unfortunately, I've worked with a couple young kiddos who had murder-suicides happen in their family. I'll be honest, can be a little bit more difficult. Working through to let go of some of those negative judgments, I have seen to be really helpful. And again, putting the context in it, if there's severe mental illness that is associated with it, or substance use, or a different traumatic event, coming in to understand can help put context around the loss. It doesn't make them feel like they completely go away. But it helps you kind of like find a new way to navigate forward. And grief is never a linear process. It always circles, it always comes back. And so learning those skills to the next time that a holiday comes up or an anniversary comes up or whatever it is that builds or brings up these intense emotions, how do I navigate that smoother the next time?
It sounds like you have a lot of experience with it.
I did it for like 10 years.
Wow.
The other great part about it is that I did get to meet some really fantastic mental health providers and see the work that they did. And I think that that's really informed the way that I want to be a clinician in the future, seeing the impact that they can have, seeing the way that they approach dealing with these big things. So
cool. Thank you. So coming back to where you are now, how has counseling psychology and studying counseling psychology affected your daily life?
There are so many ways that I think that this journey has affected the way that I navigate everyday interactions. I feel very blessed in that many of my cohort and many people in the program at large are just truly amazing people. People are coming in, especially with this program, because of the emphasis on social justice within counseling psychology. People are coming in from a very diverse set of backgrounds, different professional experiences before, and being in a space that there is just so much thought that's put into it, so much energy moving forward, you can't help but get caught up in what other people care about, the way that they're looking at the world, the research they're doing, the work that they're doing. And it's so engaging and it's so enlightening, and it just like it opens your mind in a way that it's hard to even put into words. There hasn't been a point in my life until graduate school that I was able to have these kind of interactions that have opened up my understanding far beyond even my coursework or my own research. For me, the interactions with other people who have chosen uh, to enroll in this program, for me, has been the biggest benefit. And really just being able to look at the world in a different way.
So it sounds like you're learning a lot of new perspectives, but also learning a lot more about yourself, far beyond what the classes are teaching you.
Completely. Yeah. More about myself, my like contextualizing my own history um, as a white man. I mean, that's a big thing too, understanding even more so. I mean, the work that I was doing before joining the program, I was part of Teach for America. I went through all of their diversity trainings um, and got ready in that way. But there's something specifically different about the way social justice is handled within a helping field like psychology is, that has taught me so much more about myself and my positionality, and then also opened my perspectives to other people in such a richer way. And being able to sit with clients and hearing their stories and their perspectives in such a close, confidential space. You can't help but have a wider perspective when you get fully immersed in so many other people's lives and their stories.
It seems like psychology is being learned more and more by people who are either studying psychology or people who are in Gen Z for some reason. Have you experienced that at all?
I think it can go both ways. I think that there is definitely a movement to make psychology, and I would argue well-being and mindfulness, more in the mainstream, um, to allow people to have more access to it. And I think that that especially is happening with younger generations and those that are especially involved in social media or social justice movements, um, tend to get a lot of exposure to those things. So I do think it's become um, much more widespread in that way. I would also say that I think that the field is shifting a little bit. Just like many other disciplines, psychology has traditionally been a practice of academics within the white ivory tower that kind of like gets locked in its own space. And I think more and more psychology is being deliberate in wanting to make our research and our understandings applicable and understandable to a larger audience. If I
Okay.
run like a super detailed study about a super specific population on a super specific, super rare thing, like that's great. Like it adds to the literature base, but does that spread out to people in a more general way? I would argue the answer is no. Um, but I like how people are it feels like focusing more and more on topics that are more applicable wider. So yeah,
Sure.
I think we're opening up in a really positive way.
Okay. But with that, as more and more people get more educated or at least more aware of things like mindfulness and things that can help you during your day to day, how come before all this, anxiety and depression were still going up, even with the amounts of education that we have?
Right.
Do you know much about that?
So I think there's a lot of different contributing factors to that. Um, I think on the first level, I think that we are more open and more apt at measuring anxiety and depression overall. I think that our ability to understand where people are at a larger scale has gotten much better. And when you improve the measurement tools, there is a slight effect of saying like, oh, this is a new problem. It's not a new problem. It's people have been anxious for a while. But I also think that there are larger societal factors that do contribute to overall higher levels of anxiety and depression. Um, Things like the way the economy is going, it's much harder to find financial stability unless you have the positionality to achieve either a higher paying job or have a really fantastic education. Um, so overall, like, yeah, financial instability hurts a lot of people when we have social media where we get exposed to a lot of the negative things that have existed in this country for a long time. Having more exposure, more have that be more in the forefront is also going to contribute to kind of that negative impact on people's emotional and mental well-being. um, and I mean, like you even named it too, like in our current circumstances, COVID is a major impact on people's lives. And what we know from a variety of sources is that connection relationship is so important for human beings. At our core, we are social beings. Even if you're an introvert, there is a level of connection um, that is healthy, and COVID has made that really difficult. On top of more financial instability, more anxiety because of the uncertainty of when is this going to end? Am I going to get sick? Do I have to worry about my family? Um, so yeah, of course, it has a dramatic impact on how people are feeling and how people are doing. To go back to your original question too about the education and the awareness pieces, um, I do think that there is benefit from understanding these things on an individual level, completely learning about how to manage self-care, specific emotional regulation techniques. These are wonderful things, and sometimes they're not enough. And sometimes you really do need a mental health professional to help you out with those, either to understand them or implement them, whatever it is. And I think access is a weakness in our current system. I think that there is a lot of people who, either because of finances or technological constraints or location or whatever it is, um, don't have access to mental health providers when they need it. Um, so I would love to see a system where people who need services can access them easier, and not just for major depression or like intense addiction or anything like that, but I'm having a hard time and I just need to talk to somebody right now. I think that that's more than more than qualifies you to see somebody, and that's what I would hope in the future.
That's completely fair. Bringing it back around now, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, Max, don't worry about it. We're good.
Okay. Bringing it back around to you, now that you know all the stuff that you've told me so far, what is your dream position in the future? What's your dream job?
That's one of the things from this program that has like really gotten me. Where I love in my program how I am able to have my hands in so many different pots. I get to wear so many different hats. I have my researcher hat, I have my advocate hat, I have my clinician hat. I do all of these things. And I hope that my future career can mirror that. Clinical work and direct work with clients is something that feeds me. It's the thing that I want to have the most. And I want that to be centered in my future career. But I also want to be involved with research. I want to continue to be involved with moving the field forward. I want to continue to be involved with training. I want to continue to be involved with advocacy work and access work. Um, so I want it all, which we'll see how that ends up. But all of these different aspects of psychology are so cool that once you start getting into it, especially like the like healthcare side of it, the actual like work with clients, um, there are so many cool things to get involved with. So it's such a fun dynamic field that I want it all.
So you are not the first person to talk about what feeds you.
Mm,
Can you tell me more about kind of both where you learned that term and how that term affects you?
yeah, yeah. Oh, where did I learn that? That is a really good question. So I will be honest, I don't remember the first time I heard it.
Okay.
That's escaped my memory. Um, but I do think it's something that we say, and I think it's the reason why you've probably heard it a few times is because it's so accurate for the feeling. Just like imagine your favorite food, right? Whatever it is, whatever mom or grandma or whoever cooked that you just got so excited coming home to, and how satisfied it was, and how like that experience could add energy and put a smile on your face and just like change your whole day. That's how I feel when I'm in a room with a client and we're able to make that next step. When somebody feels comfortable enough to go that step deeper, to open up about something that they haven't before, when they make a big therapeutic step, those things are so rewarding for me. I love being involved with somebody. I think it comes from this space of truly caring about your clients, and it's not, it is a job, totally, but you can't help but getting invested. You can't help but having like true empathy for these other human beings in front of you. So feeding the soul just feels like such a um, accurate term for the feeling you can get from it. And it's not for everybody. I've known people who have tried to provide therapy and realized that nope, this is not not what I want to do. For me, it's very much what I want to do.
That's awesome. I think I'm personally at the point where like I'm doing it with my friends and it feels really good, but I don't know if it's my calling,
Mm,
if that makes sense. And
yeah,
also doing it with your friends is one thing.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what makes therapy so cool, is that it's truly a relationship like none other. It is the only healthy relationship you can have that is truly one-sided. If you have a one-sided relationship in any other context, there's probably a problem there, but it's what makes therapy so beneficial, to have somebody's attention and care be 100% on you, and then that's it. Like that's like it's a it's such a unique experience to be able to have that space just for yourself. Um, and it's not for everybody, and it's different than having it be with friends. And so,
Okay. I'm excited to try it. You have your hands in a lot of pots.
yes,
How do you practice mindfulness and what is mindfulness to you?
I love that question. I think that there's a lot of definitions that get kind of thrown around mindfulness, and mindfulness is rooted in different cultural origins and different religious origins. So I think when we talk about mindfulness from a Western perspective, what we're talking about when we're talking about including it in therapy or anything like that, is that it's intentionally putting your attention on the present moment, and that's the key of it. Is just this effortful, purposeful focus on what's going on right now. I think for myself, I think in those moments where your mind can wander, that for me is when bringing mindfulness in um, can have the biggest benefit. The classic example of this is when you eat. I think it's so easy nowadays to prepare a meal, throw on the television, and kind of like half distracted watch TV and eat, and then you finish and you're like, I didn't even taste what I made. Like you're so out of it, and so being really intentional about bringing your focus to what does the food taste like, what does it feel like in your mouth, what's the experience of eating, like it brings joy in and of itself. It's so centering. I think another great example that I really love to practice is like walking from place to place. Again, another situation where it's really easy for your mind to wander. Oh, I'm going to think about the test that I just took, or what I have to do tonight, or oh, I need to return that email, or whatever else it is, right? But if you are walking down the street and you say, I'm going to pay attention to what the ground feels like through my shoes. What does it feel like to have the air like slowly go past my face as I'm walking through it? What does my breath feel like? Bringing your attention to those very in the moment things again can add just such a centering experience and get you so ready for the next thing you have to do. And I think that that's one of the major benefits of mindfulness that maybe isn't talked about as much as it should, but it taking a moment to be mindful can prepare you to jump into your next activity or your next task or whatever it is with so much more intention, and that being centered just makes it go better. I mean, like I don't know how else to really say it, but things go better when you take a second to be mindful beforehand.
It's kind of like tuning your engine after a long use.
Right. Just it taking a second and like centering yourself. I love this example too, because you see this in animals too, which is kind of like this fun thing where I love watching the videos. It's like imagine like a rabbit like going across a field, right? And a hawk comes down and like almost grabs it, and it like has to sprint and run around and hide, and like it eventually gets away. What you'll notice kind of across species is that there's this moment where the animal will like stop and literally just like shake it off, whatever happened, and then they just like go about their business as if nothing happened. It's a reset. Just like mindfulness can be for us, it's taking whatever was going on and kind of like shuffling it off for even just a second, and that can be so beneficial for going forward. And I think in our modern world, with all of the pressures that we're under and all the things that are vying to grab our attention, it's hard to remember to take even that brief second to reset. And it doesn't have to take a long time. 10 seconds, take a couple breaths, focus in, go to the next thing. That's all it takes, and it can have a really big impact.
And what about if something seems really daunting and causes anxiety just to think about it? Does this work there as well?
Oh, completely. Like this is one of a fantastic example of how you can teach mindfulness in therapy. If somebody is particularly anxious, has performance anxiety, or whatever else it is, often the experience of worrying about it in the lead up can be more distressing than actually doing it, right? And it's that the thoughts that are going in, the feelings that are kind of like circling around in your head about what's going to happen in the future. What am I worried about? What's the worst possible thing that can happen? Whatever else it is, right? Taking that second to focus in on just what's happening right now inevitably breaks that thoughts about the future. If I'm truly focusing on what's happening now and that's where my attention is, I can't think about what's going to happen when I walk into the classroom and have to give that presentation. And even just that momentary dampening and breaking of that cycle can help us go into that situation much more calm and not have a lot of those negative things that we're talking about happen. Might you stutter? Sure. Might you talk a little bit fast? Sure. Like this isn't like a perfect like magical pill that's going to solve everything. That's not what mindfulness is for. But it helps. And often what I've found with clients is that it's those little tiny pushes, those little tiny helps, those little movements in the right direction build momentum very quickly. Once I can bring those thoughts down just a little bit, my own innate coping strategies, my own innate resiliency can come in and have a much more profound effect. So it's really fun to see that happen with clients. Yeah.
Awesome. That's super cool. Okay, so we are wrapping up the end of the interview portion of this. Is there anything else that you would like to say about psychology or to potential people coming into psychology, or about mindfulness or anything like that before we continue?
I would say anyone who is considering a career in psychology, there are so many different ways to make that career look. And if it's something that you're interested in, especially if you're starting your undergraduate experience and you're thinking about a major in psychology, reach out to some people who are doing it, and reach out to a broad range of people who are doing psychology. The researchers, the professors, the therapists, people who are doing assessments, people who are doing like all kinds of this stuff. It's such a dynamic field that it's not going to look the same for even two people in the same position. So chase what you're interested in. There's going to be something for you. You just got to find it. And if you don't like psychology, do math or something. I don't know.
Do you have anything else that you would like to add before I let you go?
Only to say thank you, and thanks for making this a fun experience and having some fun with it too, and not having it be so cut and dry. So